busy working on cars that I can't post online. So this episode, just a quick update on my Cosmo. I've got a Series 4 motor with the custom sump sitting in place, no gearbox yet. I've got to get a gearbox this weekend so I can mount it. I've got a column just tacked in place with a rack in there and a shaft setup. So steering is operational. But I've just got a few more parts. I've got to hunt for this one before I can get it any further along. But I have done the last 2 days on Bardan's car. I've got the headlight area welded to the top of the quarter. I've got the wheel arch section made for it. Got this line sharpened up. Got the door skin just sitting in place so I could make the top of the quarter for this side. And I'm pretty much roughed out in those areas. I'm ready to make a taillight bucket and the top piece of this quarter. And I've got to wait till the third Cosmo gets here so I can see what the quarter panel actually looks like at the bottom, because both the ones here are sad. So a lot more detailing on this one to add. Door edges, returns here for the roof. We have a roof cut for this car, thankfully. So it's just a lot more detailing on all these panels to get them nicer fit. But it is progressing along. It's good to see it starting to take shape and look like a car again. I don't do much aluminium work. There's no bench, there's no seat. I just stand up and just lay bird shit on there, and that'll do me, because yeah, it's not really my field. Okay, just a few bits of bird shit on there just to hold it all together. And I can trim this perimeter out at a later date once I figure out pickup size and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure the Series 4 have a bolt through the center as well, so I might do a crush tube as well there for these two bolts that are bigger. To see, this is just to dummy it up with a 40mm sump, so I know what has to happen. So I've got to trim the sides down a bit more on the cradle, just because I can't drop it in enough. I want to drop these edges down, and I've still got another 40mm I can drop down from there. Slap this on this anyway. Okay, sump's bolted on. Now I can cut the rest of this cross member out so I can drop the sump right down level. Alright, so there's nothing left of the cross member. I've just notched into the actual lower arm mounts, so I have to box all that in, and I might have to cut the sump here for these front arm mounts. I'm not sure. I might have to just notch the corners of the sump. That's why I haven't fully welded it, because it might just need a little pocket on each side. Soon find out. Alrighty, welcome back. This episode I'm going to try and get the front nose cone welded together and make the bottom section of it, and also get the top half of this quarter made and sharpen up the body line on this area. Might even attack the lower quarter, see how far we go. It's going to do 2 days on it. So a quarter of the way through, just welded on the top sides, and just starting to just weld everywhere and address the areas as I go. Sometimes I just like to just go bit by bit and planish it, because if you do like a long section and you're inexperienced like me, it can get away from you and turn to shit so easily. So I just prefer to do a little bit by bit while I'm learning. Ends up looking like a quilted blanket at the end, but hey, better than what was there. Okay, so welded about 50% of it. Still got the front half and the lower to do, but I'll pull it off and just planish all these areas up. Okay, so weld this front area still, and this back join, a little few bits there before I can continue planishing all these areas. Oh, nearly lost it. Okay, so a lot has been welded and planished so far. Still got a lot of planishing to do. It's not perfect. It might look okay in photos and videos, but you can't feel it. So sit it back on the car now, and I'm going to try and work out how to do this area here. Okay, so that's just clamped on in all the areas now, the ends, so I can work out how to do this actual arch now. This can come in and down a touch. I'll trim it off, obviously. So I might mark this now, and I might even try and tip that edge. Not really sure how to go about it. I know this has got to be stretched over and down, but other than that, it's fitting okay. Better than what was there, so it's a plus. So I've just got it sat back on at the moment. I'm just planishing this a bit deeper along throughout. before the line tapers off to nothing, and then I can fold the door edge over. But I should be able to just join under here. This is all good. This whole area is good till it gets to about here, it starts to get pitted, so I'll just remake just this section here of the wheel arch itself, and it should be good. I've obviously made this piece already, so I'll focus on making this top area of the windscreen, get that joined on, and then I wasn't going to do the top, but it's pitted, so we're here. I'll just make this top section now and make all the front nose cone and headlight area, and I'll join those on after, because you've got access up under there, which is good. I'll probably even try and join it on that line too, so you can't see the join, and it gives it a bit more strength. So just using that same piece of flat bar to really sharpen up this line for this piece that I made at the front here. So sharpen that up, and then I can join it to this lower quarter, and then that'll just be one piece. I won't have to bother trying to have clamps holding it all together. I can worry about doing this windscreen piece and joining it to the top of the quarter. Same deal though, this style hammer to get the concave, and then obviously flat face to get across the top. Okay, so that's sharpened up now. Yeah, so I've got to fold that door edge over now and continue the guard edge where it's going to meet and join to this lower. So I'll sort this edge out first. I knew the fold around the body line was going to be the trickiest part, to get this indented in and also keep the sweeping shape. So see how this ends up, eh? So yeah, tricky piece to get that body line to fold over. I'll shrink the very center so it curves itself this way, then I've got to stretch these outers to get the concave back into it. So hopefully I've shrunk the center enough, and now I can just use the hammer to go and stretch the outers. Alrighty, I think that's the best I'm going to get out of one piece. Probably have to teak along the edge of the join once I figure out where the door gap actually is, because the quarter didn't exist from here on. So I guess I'll put a door skin on the door shell that I've got and figure out where the lower quarter actually has to go, and then I guess continue, join this to it and see how we go. At least it's only a 90 flange here, so it's good, you can get to it, doesn't wrap around or anything. So the lower is now just overlapped, and I can put this back on now. I started to fold the edge for the wheel arch, so sit this back on and see where it goes from here. I've got to continue to make this wheel arch section the whole way around and stop it about here where it stops being pitted, so I can get away with joining into this area now. Thankfully I don't have to remake this, that would be chaotic set of dies on the pull max, that one. Okay, so clamped back on top, and I'm going to do this edge now for the door edge. Just trim it back and just tip that edge over, and then I'll worry about doing this wheel arch, continue the wheel arch along here. Alrighty, so I got the front guard just clamped back on over the top and the lower quarters clamped on. I thought I'd just try the door skin on just to see what it does, how bad it is, and yeah, it's pretty shit. So it needs adjustments everywhere. I might end up using this one for my car, but the second time round for this one will be much better. I've got to obviously tweak that a little bit here, change the shape, but it's got no shell in it at the moment, it's just the outer skin. So I just wanted to see it sitting on there, but looks like a little bit more of the puzzle is completed once it's clamped on. So with any luck, turn this into this arch. So just cut a 10mm perimeter around that shape with the pull max, and then I can tip that edge over on the bead roller, and then just bead roller, soft lower wheel, tipping upper, and tip that edge over, and just let that run through probably like 10 times. It'll probably pull it over. I could go with a hard lower wheel, but because it's on such a curve, this wheel arch, I'm thinking the lower to be soft would be a better idea, but soon find out how it goes. Never made one of these before, so today's the day. Right, take it to the car, have a check of how we're going with it. Very tricky shape, this one. So it's got to inverse in on itself, and then this will wrap round completely. So yeah, never done a shape like this before. So I've switched over to the hard lower wheel now, and I'm hoping I can tip it the rest of the way over a lot easier. Well, I stuffed up. I thought that me shrinking that bottom edge would pull this side around, but it's actually the opposite way. It's got to be stretched. So fix that. So just tipping that reverse arch over the dolly now. Alrighty, so that's pretty close now. I put screw holes there so that I got a reference point, so I know exactly where it's moving to. But we're on. So I can now start tigging it to this edge, and should be good. Can end it about there. Plenty of excess to cut off. Sweet. Continue that in the morning. So ready to TIG this join together now on the edge, and then I'm going to move on to doing top of this back quarter. I'd like to do that, pull the door skin back off, shrink that edge down so it pulls it around a bit more. I think I've got to go around on the bead roller, I think, and just indent that a bit more. I just want to try and get it all roughed out. So I might even try and do this piece and the lower quarter today and just try and get it all tied together before I can figure out what needs to be tweaked here and there, because it's really hard to do little pieces on there without having the full door skin and stuff in. You pretty much just chase your tail unless you've got all the pieces in there, and then just start fudging them all to suit each other. Alrighty, welded together. Now sand it up, pull it off, planish it. Sand it with just 80 on the flapper. And now I'm going to pull it off and planish all the lows back up. You can see little dips in these areas, so I'll planish all them up and then give it another grind. So you've got to be pretty strategic on where you join, so make sure you can actually get to it. Otherwise you can shoot yourself in the foot if you can't get to those areas. And that's the time consuming part, is to dress all this up nicely without losing the shape through the top. So you really got to take your time. I've got to dress this area up as well for the door edge, so I've got to bring this up to round it off. Alright, back on the car, and I dress this edge up a little bit, so I can't be too worried about the gaps at the moment because we're overlapped. So we've actually got to lose 1 mil on every corner. Fitting alright though, just a tiny bit more planishing to do in a few areas. Like you can see some welds still here, they've got to be bumped up, but you can access all that once it's actually welded on too. So it's the best part, is I don't have to fully finish it before it goes on. I think I'm going to go to the rear lower quarter now. Maybe this area, I don't know, I kind of want to do the rear, but I'll see. I might do this area first. I really wanted to do a bonnet skin and then make a die for the full max to start making this inner bonnet structure. I think that would be a fun one. But the sheet that I've got left is just too small, so my Hilux has a blown diff at the moment, so I'm stuck at home. I can't really go and get another full sheet. I've got to maybe replace the diff this weekend. So a tricky shape this quarter. It actually bows both ways and it tapers off pretty sharply towards the back of the car from the middle. So it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds, really. I might have to join it here and start tapering it right off, depending on where I can shrink it. So obviously it's completely rotted away on this car, but it actually is meant to return in, and then the roof has another return and they meet with a little chrome strip. So I have to integrate that into another top piece, because this is also a tricky shape like the door, how it's got a indent in and then return up. So I'll probably make that piece separate around the window and join it onto this piece. It's hard to show shape changes on video, but you can see just how much it's got to come down. This is just sitting back on top, the ends are pulling down, top is going over, and it might be doing what I want it to do. Sort of have no idea, I'm just guessing. Okay, so that worked out pretty well. Everywhere pulled down decently. I'm ready to do the taillight bucket and this piece here. I can't do lower quarter just yet until I get the other Cosmo here, but I've got a lot of tidying up to do, detailing, like add door edge here. I've got a return to go for the roof. We've got a roof cut for this car, so I have to add a little extension on the roof cut as well because it's also rusty at the same spot. I've got this area to pull down, more detailing on all these door edges and any other gaps, but fitting decent, can't really complain. Alright, I want to try something small and intricate while I've got no full sheet. I'm going to try and replicate a fuel flap and hinge setup. So first off, I've got to make the hinge mechanism, and then I've got to make the fuel door. Alrighty, so I used the hammer just to form a few beads to figure out what size I want, which is this size. Now I'm just going to fold up a piece the right shape and then hopefully form the bead into it. So I think I can form these beads over this dolly now. Top one's the easy one to fold, but I think I'll have to just run 2 little slits to form the bottom one. Okay, so slits and folded them over, and now they'll match. I just got to fade the bead back out of this piece and then just fix this up and then TIG this together, bump it back out so the shape matches, and then work out where it actually joins to the hinge. Alrighty, so the slits are welded up. I can just bash the bead back out of it so it flattens it off, and then do the top, just curve it around some more. Just a hinge and backstop setup so that it can only go so far. Alright, just a little cutout for the hinge, so I'm just going to weld this together now. That will do me. It's close enough to looking exactly the same. It's going to function the same. The flap itself is exactly the same. It's just the hinge mechanism might not look 100% the same, but I don't think any purists are going to be looking at my fuel hinge when the rest of the car is what it looks like. So that's why it's got to be the shape it is. It uses this little return spring to hold it, so that's why I had to copy it. Couldn't just use just a normal conventional hinge or anything that just bolted to the top or something. Okay, so I would fix it to this car, but it's actually rotted away at the mounting point, so I gotta fix that first. Cool. Gap it all up once it's finalized. So I'm gonna wrap things up here. Just wiped over the panels with an oily rag, and it lets you see the areas that need to be planished more, and it shows up all the issues way more. So there's like a dent, a crease and stuff here. I've got to obviously change the shape of the top of the door, add the door edge to this quarter panel, and planish the center of this panel a bit more. Still a few little issues there, but definitely keen to make the taillight bucket and the top piece of this quarter and the lower, and we'll see how we go from there.